I think we can all agree that 2023 has been a pretty crazy year for the underground. Between all the music released, all the beats, and just overall the conversations around certain artists, this is definitely the most active the community's been in a while. Like, I feel like I would wake up and like another person would be trending on Twitter or be going viral with some snippet. And even if I personally don't always like the music, I mean, at least it gives people something to talk about. I don't really get people who say the underground is dead when I feel like at least for the past few months there's always been something happening. And if we talk about people that actually went up this year, I feel like there's been a decent handful. Some people went from a small following to thousands of followers, while other people seemingly gained an entire following overnight. It's kind of crazy how fast you can blow up nowadays. Like, all you need is a couple hit songs, maybe some people posting you on Instagram or Twitter, and boom, there's your fan base. But even though there's tons of people seemingly poised to break through to the mainstream, the big question is who's really going to. In every underground era, there's a handful of people that managed to cross over to the next level or at least get really close. There were hella in the OG SoundCloud wave. I mean, I feel like everybody knows who they are at this point. Even if most of them did end up falling off later, you can't deny that they were pretty popular at the time. If we look at the 2021 wave, I feel like the only people to really blow up in my opinion were like Yee, who's one of the biggest artists in the world at this point, Ken Carson, went on a crazy run this year, and Destroy Lonely, who isn't at the same level as Ken, but he's definitely getting there, and he's an opium, so I mean, you can't really consider him underground. Maybe you could even throw Fago in there, but I mean, I don't even know what he's doing at this point. So in this video, I kind of wanted to go over everyone in this wave that's considered next up and give my thoughts on whether I think they have a shot at the mainstream and what they need to do to get to the next level. So I hope you enjoy, and yeah, let's just get into it. Alright, so the first artist we're going to talk about is Osama. Now, unless you've been living under a rock, you've definitely heard his name a bunch in the underground. He's gained so many followers and run on millions of streams in only the past few months. It was around this time last year when I first tapped into him, and comparing now with back then is, I don't even know what to say. His growth has been so crazy that some people were even calling him an industry plant, talking about the label bought hella promo and they're paying people to push him. I can't even blame them for coming to that conclusion, but I think it's obvious he's not a plant. He just has hella connections and he played his cards right. Aside from releasing genuinely good music, he also capitalized on all the controversy around his name. He's been having to deal with the Ken Carson / opium clone allegations since he dropped his debut album Osama Season, but this actually helped him go up more because everyone is talking about him whether they like the music or not. Now, I might be biased, but I would say out of everyone on the come up, Osama easily has the best shot of actually going mainstream. He has a pretty trendy sound at the moment. He just dropped his second album, Flex Music, and if I had to give Osama Sound the name, then that would probably be it. Like, it's nothing too crazy and outside the box, but that's exactly why it works. At the end of the day, most people just want something they can turn up to, music that has hella bass and distortion, and that's exactly what Osama makes. But I think the funnier thing is that the majority of his actual discography isn't even that sound. I know most people probably only listen to Osama Season and Flex Music, but I would say his songs on Perk 40, Bullymon, and similar type beats are just as good, if not better. But for some reason, people just don't mess with that sound, which is probably why he switched it up to appeal to a wider audience. He is still working with those prods though, so I'm glad he didn't like completely abandon that sound. But overall, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if Osama is the first one to really blow up out of this way. He's already signed, so it's only a matter of time before he drops something that turns out to be the one. Now, one thing I will say is that his current sound has the potential to get kind of repetitive. Not to an insane extent, but I think dropping another project with only that style wouldn't really be the best move. Now, I'm not saying he should start doing rock or country music, but it would be nice to hear a little bit more versatility in the future. Alright, so next up, we got Hard Rock. Now, I have to give him credit here. He might be the only underground artist to do nothing for almost a year and still maintain a fan base and continue to do numbers. I first heard about Hard Rock sometime last year, and when I listened to his music back then, I wasn't a fan. I actually thought he was trash if I'm keeping it in the stack. I don't know why. I think it was because everyone was calling him a lone clone, which looking back made no sense. But I never really tapped back in until he dropped One of One this year. That album is honestly really good. I ended up going back through his discography and finding a bunch of stuff I liked, notably 808 Speaker Knockers, which I think is still better than One of One if I'm being honest. But career-wise, I think Hard Rock is actually doing pretty good. He's still doing the whole mysterious thing, but I think it works for him because it doesn't feel like he's purposely trying to be mysterious. It just feels like that's who he is. Like, you can tell when someone is doing it for aesthetic, and that's why people call it corny, but I think Hard Rock just genuinely hates social media or something. I do think he needs to be a little bit more active if he wants to continue to go up, but I guess it's working out so far. Now, one thing I am kind of confused about is why didn't he sign to Opium? I don't know if he's currently signed right now to any label, but I feel like he would have fit perfectly in the roster. I know there were some rumors a while ago Opium Baby was teasing stuff, although I mean, we know he's not really the most reliable person, but maybe he turned it down or he was never offered anything. I mean, who really knows? But yeah, I mean, I feel like if he wants to continue to go up, he he has to be out in the public a little bit more, because nobody really knows anything about him. The only big source of information about him I've seen is a Bobbleland video basically covering his entire career and what he was doing the whole time he was gone. And I mean, shout out Bob, but if that's the only major way to learn anything about you, like, come on. So that's really all I gotta say. His music is fire, he has a unique sound, and I think he has the potential to be huge if he really wants to. But he just gotta be more active. I mean, that's really all there is. So for this next section, I'm actually gonna talk about two artists, xaviersobased and NetSpend, who are kind of similar in terms of the music they make, but they're also completely different. Starting off with Xavier, I'm honestly really surprised that he got this big. I'm not even trying to hate, but his music is not something that I would honestly expect he would be bumping in public. I've known of him for a while, I never really got into that kind of music, so I just never checked him out. He started building some buzz last year when the whole jerk wave started taking off. His song Patchmate started going viral, and this is one of the only times in history I've ever seen Twitter completely united. Everybody was calling the song trash, terrible, pretty much every negative verb you could think of. Even I was low-key hating at first, but I actually thought it was a troll song, so I didn't know he was actually being serious. Now eventually, and I don't even know how he did it, but he managed to shift the narrative around his music, and he's built a pretty strong fan base over the past year. I'm always seeing videos of his shows which look crazy, and I think just the other day there was a riot because he was supposed to perform but it got canceled. I'm still not really a fan of his music. I do like a few songs and I don't think he's a bad artist whatsoever, but overall it's just not for me. Now, could I ever see him go on mainstream? If I'm being honest, probably not, but just because the kind of music he makes is so niche that I just can't ever see it getting super huge. But I think if he keeps up at the pace he's going, he could definitely become like a, I don't know, Blade type artist where he's not like super huge, but he does numbers and he has a cult following. In a similar but different lane is NetSpend, aka one of the most hated artists in the underground at the moment. Ever since he started gaining traction, it's just been constant bullying from all directions, and I'm honestly confused because in my opinion, he's not bad at all. Like I said, he does make jerk, or I guess jerk adjacent music, but I would say, at least in my opinion, his take on it is way more polished and appealing as opposed to other people in the same genre. I feel like for this type of music, you really just have to turn off your brain to enjoy it, because if you don't, then you'll probably think it's ass. But I think people are being way too harsh on him considering he's really young. I think he's only like 15 or 16. He still has so much time to improve and develop his sound more, and I feel like he's already started doing that in some of his newer music. Now, despite all the negativity towards his music, he's easily one of the fastest growing artists in the underground. He's already at half 100K on IG in under a year, and he's definitely got a lot of eyes on him. He even got the Opium Baby cosign a while back, which from what we've seen isn't that crazy, but it still is an industry cosign. I feel like all that's left for him to do is drop a project, which I think he's getting ready to do pretty soon. It doesn't have to be groundbreaking or anything, just enough to introduce himself to the mainstream, kind of like what Osama did with Osama season. I've seen some people say he's a trend and he's gonna disappear in a year, but I honestly disagree. There's definitely potential, and he already has a strong foundation he can build off of. So I don't know, I mean, I think we'll all be surprised in the end. The last artist I'm gonna cover in this video is yhapojj. Now, I honestly was not tuned into bro for like a good chunk of this year, which is a shame because he makes pretty good music. I don't even really know what genre to call it. He has a lot of songs on jerk beats and he's one of the main people pushing that sound, but I wouldn't say that's his only style. And plus his whole thing is he's not a jerk rapper. But regardless of whatever name you want to call it, it's pretty unique and I can't really say he sounds like anyone else. I do hear a little Isaiah influence in some of his music, but I mean, I've said this before, it's nothing wrong with being influenced unless you're trying to act like you came up with that style yourself, which I don't think Yapo's trying to do. He's also apparently friends with dude too, so I feel like it's natural to take a little inspiration from people you're cool with. He's been blowing up like crazy over the past couple months and he has some pretty impressive numbers. He's also probably the only one in this video besides Xavier that actually drops consistently with over 4 full-length projects this year alone. So if we being honest, that already puts him above everybody else. Nah, but for real though, I don't think a lot of artists realize the more you drop, the more you'll grow your fan base. I've already talked about the mysterious act, but seriously, you have to get to a certain level to earn the right to act like that. You can't just drop 2 songs a year, then start acting like you in Opium. People gonna forget about you and move on. It happens all the time. But rant aside, I do think Yapo is really good. He has a ton of mainstream appeal. He's already signed and he has the fan base. He was actually headlining that show that got shut down with Xavier, I think. So yeah, you can already see he's on his way. Just like with Osama, I think all he needs is one song or one project and it's up for him. That's my list or lineup of who's gonna go up out of this new wave. I already know there's a couple artists people are gonna say I left out, but that's bound to happen no matter who I talk about. I tried to include everybody that I think objectively went up this year, as in 2023, so keep that in mind. It's cool to me at least how much diversity in sounds there is in the scene right now. In past years, I don't think we were able to say that. It's like everybody has their own little wave going on, and I think that's hard. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe, follow my IG, and yeah, see y'all next year, I guess.